Hello and welcome to another Explainer. Today we're diving into an event that literally defies belief. We're talking about one of the strangest, most mind-bending disasters in American history. An incident where one single, practically microscopic error completely rewrote the map of Louisiana. Let's get right into it.
I want you to picture this for just a second. Imagine you're standing on a shoreline, looking out at a vast, calm body of water. And then you watch the entire lake just vanish right before your eyes, violently draining straight into the earth. But wait, it gets crazier. Imagine seeing that same lake come back, not just returning, but coming back bigger, deeper, and aggressively swallowing everything in its path. Boats, thick forests, entire buildings. It sounds like a Hollywood sci-fi movie, right? But back in 1980, this was terrifyingly real.
Part 1. The impossible disappearance and a peaceful morning.
So, to really wrap our heads around how this happened, we've got to transport ourselves to the morning of November 20, 1980. On the surface, Lake Peigneur was perfectly normal. It was just a calm, shallow freshwater lake, only about 11 feet deep. You had local fishermen out on the water, and an oil crew was operating a completely standard drilling platform. Everything was absolutely peaceful. But hidden directly beneath that tranquil water was a massive, highly active salt mine, just sprawling with workers and heavy machinery. It was literally two completely different worlds, separated by this one fragile barrier of rock and earth.
Which brings us to part 2, a catastrophic mistake.
Now, this wasn't some huge, spontaneous explosion. It was actually just one tiny mechanical error that triggered an unbelievable chain reaction. Here's how it went down. Step 1. The drilling crew up on the lake surface miscalculates, and their 14-inch drill bit accidentally pierces the roof of that salt mine below. At first, it seemed minor. But then comes step 2. Fresh water starts rushing down into the mine. And here is the fatal scientific reality we have to remember. Fresh water rapidly dissolves salt. So that little 14-inch hole immediately began melting away, geometrically expanding by the second. By step 3, the drainage accelerated so violently that a massive, churning whirlpool actually began to form on the surface.
Part 3. The Giant Vortex.
Okay, so that peaceful morning, completely gone. As the cavern below literally dissolved, the whirlpool above became an apocalyptic vortex. The sheer power of the suction began dragging massive objects straight to the depths. We are talking about 11 heavy cargo barges being sucked down into the churning mud. Huge, solid chunks of the shoreline, thick with trees and forests, were uprooted and dragged underwater. Entire buildings collapsed into the rapidly expanding crater. Even that massive steel oil drilling platform itself was just violently consumed by the dark water.
But as this absolute destruction is tearing the surface apart, a much, much darker reality was unfolding below. Deep inside the dark, echoing tunnels of the salt mine, the workers suddenly realized what was happening. The lake was literally crashing through their ceiling. Hundreds of miners suddenly had only minutes, literally minutes, to escape a maze of tunnels before the entire cavern flooded. It was a frantic, pitch-black race for survival against a completely unstoppable force of nature.
Part 4. Reversing the river.
As the lake continued to empty out into the earth, we hit the climax of the disaster. And just look at how incredibly fast this whole timeline unfolds. In the morning, the lake is perfectly normal. Just minutes after the drill pierces the roof, the structural integrity of the entire mine fails. Shortly after that, the giant whirlpool consumes the entire lake bed. But it's right here at the climax where the basic laws of physics just seem to completely break. The massive void left in the earth created such an immense vacuum that it forced the nearby Delcambre Canal to do the impossible. It actually reversed its direction. Literally, for the first time in recorded history, a waterfall flowed backward. The reverse flow of the canal acted like a giant straw, pulling millions of gallons of salt water directly from the Gulf of Mexico, rushing it inland to fill the massive, empty, underground caverns where the salt mine used to be. This unimaginable volume of incoming salt water completely and permanently transformed the entire local ecosystem.
Part 5. A Miraculous Survival.
So eventually, the chaotic rush of millions of gallons of water stops, and the dust finally settles. And against all odds, every single miner escaped. No one died. Think about it. Despite 11 barges sinking, buildings collapsing, an entire oil rig vanishing, and a freshwater lake violently draining into a mine filled with hundreds of workers, a total human tragedy was somehow averted. It is a staggering, unbelievable miracle that not a single human life was lost that day.
But while the people survived, the geography,
It definitely did not. Remember at the beginning of this explainer when I mentioned the lake was just a quiet, shallow body of water about 11 feet deep? Well, because millions of gallons of Gulf water rushed in to fill those massive underground caverns, the lake's maximum depth plummeted to over 1,300 feet. That is absolutely insane. One catastrophic mistake permanently reshaped the map, turning a shallow freshwater pond into a deep saltwater lake, and ultimately making Lake Peigneur one of the absolute strangest places in America.
It all came down to one miscalculation, one drill bit, and an entire lake vanished, only to return bigger, deeper, and forever changed. It really forces us to realize just how incredibly fragile the ground we stand on actually is. Which leaves me with one final question for you. What would you do if the earth beneath your feet suddenly disappeared? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.